All right. So it is my pleasure to introduce our main speaker tonight, Salina. Come on up. Let's give her a round of applause. And Salina, Sean back there will give you a 5-minute and a 2-minute warning. And do you want 30 or 40?
Let's go 40.
All right. There you go.
Salina, alcoholic. Thank you guys for having me out tonight. I'm going to set my timer too because I got to see it, you know? Or else I got to hurry up and recover in 5 minutes. Okay, here we go. I have a sobriety date. Thank you so much, Nancy, for asking me to come out tonight. Sobriety date of March 1st, 2023. Thank you. I have a sponsor who I talk to every day, and I could work myself into tears thinking about her, you know, because we've been through so much, very much like a symbiotic relationship. We both get something out, we both get freedom out of working together. There's something about an alcoholic sitting with another alcoholic. That's where the magic happens in this program. And I have a home group. It's at Battleship, Iowa, Wednesday night, 7:30. And I have the honor and privilege of secretarying this year and finding the speakers. And it's been just such a privilege. It's such a special meeting to me because it's the first meeting I ever attended in my life. So we'll get into it a little bit. So 40 minutes, I'll give you guys a little background. Let's take it all the way back to conception. So my dad got 2 women pregnant within the same time frame, right? So his girlfriend and then my mom, you know? Do the math. And they met up and they confronted him. If you could just imagine driving into your driveway home from work and your 2 pregnant girlfriends are standing there. And so they confronted him and they asked who he wanted to be with. He chose his girlfriend and he moved away to this teeny tiny town in Arizona and cut off all ties with everybody in the South Bay, including my mom. And what I didn't know what was happening behind the scenes in that situation was I became their family secret. They didn't tell my sister or my brother about me. And I didn't meet, the first time I ever heard from my dad in my life was when I was 35 years old and he Facebook friend requested me. And I have a sister who's my exact same age, 3 months to the day younger than me. And I was left with my mom, and she's one of us. And she's one of those, you know, some of them are sicker than others. And she's something else, but she got married when I was 10 years old, and they used to throw these big wild parties. And they were super fun, and I'd run around with the kids, and we'd have a good old time. And it was like a fun time, you know. We were like the party house. And everybody would go home, and then I would listen to my stepdad beating my mom in the next room. And I remember specifically hiding under my bed when I was a little girl. And that part of it's important because I saw myself in this book later on as that little girl under the bed. And I would wake up in the morning to like watch cartoons, and I'd crawl from underneath the bed, and there'd be lines of cocaine on my baby picture. Like my baby picture that was like taken off the wall, put on the counter, and like racked up lines on it. And now, you know, in recovery, it's like I could think of like 15 other surfaces that I've done cocaine off of that were not my daughter's face, you know? But that got thoroughly dealt with in my 4th step, thank goodness. And so when I first got here, and I'll get a little bit into the drinking, but this part's really important for me, is that little girl under the bed, right? When I first got here, and I go to a lot of book studies. I go to a 12 and 12 study on Monday night up on 25th Street. And I go to big book studies, I go to step studies. When I opened the 12 and 12, which is one of my favorite things, I love, the big book talks about our causes and conditions, right? It talks about the causes and conditions of what takes place in our lives. And it's our design for living. Bill was 3 years sober, Bill W., when he wrote the book. He wrote the 12 and 12 when he was 12 years sober. So a lot had been revealed to him, right? It says more will be revealed to us, more will be revealed to us. And in the 12 and 12, he talks a lot about instincts, which I'm really interested in. And when I got to step 4 in the 12 and 12, paragraph 1 talks about, as human beings, biologically and by design, right? We have these instincts that are built into us to multiply us, to feed us, to keep us safe for survival. Then paragraph 2 talks about in and through life circumstances, those same instincts become misguided. That's how it refers to it, misguided. It's like the train that goes around the Christmas tree, and it gets knocked off the tracks, and it's just bumping into the wall, bumping into the wall. It gets misguided, and it's just bumping into the wall. The older I got, the more I tried in life, the more I bumped into the wall, and I didn't know why, you know? My natural born instincts as a child should have been, when I was under that bed, fight or flight, but I couldn't do either one of those. So I had to learn for survival, that instinct became misguided, and I had to learn how to disassociate. I had to learn how to mentally remove myself from where I was physically, right? Because it was too much for me. So I had to learn how to disassociate. In step 4, this is one of my favorite parts. Talking about the misguided instincts, it says, nearly every serious emotional problem can be seen as a case of misdirected instinct. When that happens, our great natural assets, the instincts, have turned into physical and mental liabilities. And that's exactly what happened to me. My first time ever drinking was, I was drinking tequila sunrises with my cousin. And she was just drinking hers, sipping it, having a good old time. And I just remember taking my drink and running back to my grandpa's bar and like more and more and more tequila, and I blacked out that night. And I found the greatest form of disassociation I've ever experienced in my life. I was able to mentally remove myself from where I was physically. It was the blackout that I chased. It was the blackout that I wanted. I don't want to party. I don't have a shell to come out of. You know what I mean? I don't want to party with the girls and have cocktails and have social hour. I want to black out because it's like I could push pause on life, and I wasn't experiencing life for that particular time frame. So every single time I drank after that, I blacked out. I drank like that every single time. I'm the variety of alcoholic who hits rock bottom and a fire hydrant in the same night. And that night, it was karaoke night at this bar in Torrance. And I drove home during a blackout, and I hit a fire hydrant. And the police came, and they got me. I don't remember the impact. I don't remember any of it, right? I was just blacked out driving home. I was headed in the right direction. I do give myself that. But it was like a geyser, you know, the fire hydrant. It was the whole, my car was totaled, you know, everything. And I just remember this woman being like, "You just hit that fire hydrant." And I'm like, "No, I didn't." And she was like, "Well, your airbag's deployed and you're covered in vomit, and I just watched you hit it, so you did, you know." And they took me to Twin Towers County for 5 days, which I thought was interesting for DUI, you know. And I'm thinking, like, I thought you just sober up and they get you out of here, you know. What the hell's going on here? And they're not particularly informative. I don't know if there's any county alumni in here tonight. So I wasn't really getting informed of what was taking place, and they came and got me one day, and they were like, "Salina," and they shackled me like hands and feet with like a chain running down. Like, what is this, the Green Mile? Like, what the hell's going on here? And then they put me in this bus, and I'm like, okay, I thought it was called a prison bus, you know? And I'm like, I'm going to prison for sure. And a cage that's just big enough just for my chair, and closed it. and like padlocked. I'm like, what am I, fucking Hannibal Lecter? What the hell's going on here, right? And then they took me to court that day, and I found out exactly how much a fire hydrant is worth in LA County that day. But I drank like that, you know? I consider that to definitely be a rock bottom in my life, you know? And I'm the kind of alcoholic, the variety of alcoholic that hits rock bottom, and it's so familiar to me that I make a home down there, you know? Like, I become like a deep sea dweller at rock bottom, and it's comfortable and it's familiar, and that I can live in, you know? So I blacked out every night for 21 years without missing a night after that. And there's not really like this white light moment that happened that brought me to the program, brought me to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, because my sponsor always tells me, these rooms are not the program. The program is in here, is in the big book. The program is sitting one alcoholic with another alcoholic. That's the program, you know? I feel like I was just in a tornado that was just going and going and going. I didn't have the wherewithal to figure out like what was happening, what was wrong, how do I fix it, why am I like this? You know, I hear a lot of people that share and they're like, does any of that make me an alcoholic? No, right? But I love the way Bill says it. He's like, does any of that stuff, my childhood, whatever, right? Drinking for 21 years straight, blacking out every night. Does any of that make me an alcoholic? And he says, I don't know. And that's my favorite way of like explaining it to myself is like, I don't know. I don't need to know. Because if a tiger's chasing me, right, am I gonna wonder why it's chasing me? Or I'm gonna get the hell out of there and find a solution, you know? And that's what this program provided for me. I feel like I was spit out of a tornado onto the battleship Iowa, and that's how I got here. It was the first meeting I ever attended in my life, and when I first got here, I was bankrupt in every capacity. I was physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, spiritually bankrupt, and I was feral, right? I had been isolating, hiding from people. I just want to black out every night. I want to talk to my friends. I can definitely still show up at work. People have no problem getting their hair done when you're hungover. They just want to get their roots done. But everything else, I just couldn't wait to get home. I could face the day as long as I knew I was going to go home and I was going to black out. It was my nightly reprieve. And so I did it over and over and over. And every morning I had a hangover. It was hell. You know, it was that insanity of thinking like, maybe tomorrow I won't have a hangover. Maybe tomorrow I won't drink. But I just, every single day, pull right into Eddie's Liquor, you know. Every single day, my car would just go there, you know. So I got here, and I think it's super important to be transparent about like the feelings I had when I first got here. It was so unfamiliar. It was like peace and serenity and hugs and cake and, you know, I had never experienced that, and I hate hugs, just FYI. Anybody who ever sees me at the Alano. I hate it, you know? And I was feral, and it's like they let a feral cat into the house, and the fire's lit, and everybody's like, isn't this lovely? And I'm just like, man, screw this. I want to go back to my alley, you know? It was unfamiliar to me. I wanted to slam my head into a wall. And the only place that my skin felt like it fit right was at a meeting. And I hit the Alano 4 times a day, you know? And I just kept coming back, and I just kept coming back, because for that hour, it was okay. And I didn't realize at the time, it was okay because I was getting outside of myself for that moment. I was listening to other people share. I wasn't obsessing about myself and trying to figure out how I'm gonna solve all this wreckage that I've created, you know? And you know, it talks about it when it says, probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. No human power can relieve my alcoholism. When I had numbed and suppressed every single thing that ever happened to me and pushed it down and never processed anything. And the minute the cork was in the bottle, those things started to surface and stare me in the face, and life felt like excruciating. It felt like one raw nerve, you know? And the only thing that combats it, the big book says, is to find a sufficient solution, right? I had a solution before. It was blacking out every night. And I think it's so ironic that my previous solution was being unconscious. And I get here, and the new solution is to have a conscious contact with God, you know? I listened around the rooms, you know? I held on to it like it was a life preserver, because it was, you know? It's all I had. And I think there's such an advantage, and it's such that perfect time in that gift of desperation that they talk about around here, where when you have nothing and you're just under God's wing for like shelter and survival, right? There's such an advantage to that, because it's like, I feel like I've been under God's wing for so long, I got to know God's heart, you know? I got to connect and understand God's heart, because I've been under there for so long. And I started listening around here, and you know, you guys told me to get a sponsor and to start working the steps, and that if I started doing that, I would start working towards feeling better. And that's all I wanted, you know? I wanted to die for 43 years of my life. I've never valued life or want to live, you know? If somebody would have been like, you're gonna die if you keep drinking like that, I'd be like, cool, when? You know, like I would be like, it doesn't send me running into the rooms of AA, somebody telling me like, this is gonna kill you. Because I would go to bed every night and pray to God it would take me out. But I saw people that felt that way at one point, you know? I went to a women's meeting one time, and this woman shared, and she was like, it was a meeting on the hill in Palos Verdes, and it's just a bunch of Palos Verdean alcoholic women, if you could just imagine. And this woman's sharing, and she's just like, everyone's sharing about what color they want to paint their kitchen, and I want to put a freaking gun in my mouth when I first got here. And she had 28 years sober, and I just looked at her, and I'm like, she's perfect. And I asked her to sponsor me, and she is. She's amazing. She felt the way I did when I first got here, you know? And I feel like that's what's so important about that transparency. We never want to be too recovered. We want to remember, I want to remember what it was like, because it's just like it says in the page 1, it's not even page 1, it's the first page in the book. It says, the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. Well, what's recovered, right? Is that cured? What is recovered? I looked it up, and it said, saved from loss, restored to usefulness. It's that usefulness is where the magic happens. When I take that whole pile of crap I came in here with, everything horrible, my life was just, it was just a mess, right? And I'm able to make use of those things today, and we're able to make use of it. I'm able to get up here and speak and share those things and talk about how I have found freedom in and through this program, the freedom from the bondage of myself, it says, you know? Then that's where the magic starts to happen in here. And I started working the steps, and we got to step 1, and it said, we're powerless over alcohol. And that word powerless it didn't sit right with me. I hated it. And I'm like, I don't want to adhere that word powerless to my life. You know, I heard it's pretty important to really get a thorough first step around here. But in my head, it meant defenseless, right? Like my hands are going to get tied behind my back. I'm going to be defenseless, and life's just going to kick my ass some more. And I don't want that. My whole life has been geared up around setting up this whole barrier system so that I'm never vulnerable, because the people closest to me have always hurt me. And so I don't want anybody close to me. I don't want to be powerless, you know? But then I looked that word up in the dictionary. And I encourage you, even if you feel like you know the meaning to a word, look it up in the dictionary, and it gives you a deeper meaning. And sometimes, just like the big book says, we lose the ability to tell the truth from the false I don't even know what the definition is of that word. I'm living off of what I've created it to be. Powerless means lacking the authority to act, meaning that was never my authority to begin with, right? I'm up in the CEO office trying to run this spiritually, not really. Up in the CEO office, I'm a hairstylist. I don't go to an office. Up in the CEO office trying to run this business, but I'm running it into the ground, thinking like, why isn't it working? And everybody else's businesses are going great. My friends are like off to like Hawaii for Easter, and I'm over here straining red wine through a coffee filter to get the fruit flies out of it, you know? And it's like, that's my life. Like, I just need more wine, more. And I found an empty bottle. I found a bottle on top of my fridge that I forgot to put a cork in, and it had this many fruit flies, and I'm like, became the alcoholic MacGyver. Filtered it through a coffee filter. I thought it was genius. And squeezed it out, you know? Why is my life not working? Why are their businesses working and my business isn't working? I'm trying to run my life and it's not working. I'm just bumping into the wall. I lack the authority to act. It was never my authority to begin with. I'm walking around with this lamp plugged in under my armpit because I'm the power source and it's not lighting up my whole life. And I get here and my sponsor has the ability to point out this flashlight to the appropriate power source. You know, she's always told me, I place your hand in God's hands, that's it. You know, and the appropriate power source is not me. I plugged it in and it lit up. It worked. And it talks about it here in We Agnostics. We could wish to be moral. We could wish to be philosophically comforted. In fact, we could will these things with all our might, but the needed power wasn't there. Our human resources, as marshaled by the will, were not sufficient. They failed utterly. Lack of power, that was our dilemma. We had to find a power which we could live, and it had to be a power greater than ourselves. I like this part. Bill, he's kind of funny. Period. Obviously. That's what he says after, and I love that part because it is obvious. Now that I look at it, it's obviously not me. I have a perfect blueprint for what my life looks like when my grubby hands are all over it, and it turns to crap every single time. Perfect blueprint. The minute I took my hands off my life, and I admitted that I was powerless, and I adhered that word to my life, and I understood what that meant, and that my life was unmanageable. It's like I got in the river. You know, I went to the Kern River one year, and the sun was setting, and it's like the current was like so strong you had to like anchor yourself, and it was just this power like going past you. And I just remember standing there and being like, this is the greatest feeling of my life, this is the greatest moment of my life, right? And it's like, I think about that with steps 2 and 3. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And then I handed over my will and my life, this wine-soaked dreadlock of a life, over to God. I'm like, take it. I don't want my life. You could have that. Powerless part was hard. You could have my life. I don't care. I take my hands off my life because I've handed over my will. And it's like that river's now flowing. My hands are off my life. I'm not the one doing it anymore. And all these things that no longer serve me start to get washed away. You know, there's like barnacles, and things that have been adhered for my whole life just getting washed off of me, you know? And it's like this current's going by, and I'm just like, oh my God, that obsession leaves, right? The sanity starts to get restored. I'm in this river, and everything that no longer serves me is getting washed away. And every once in a while I look back and be like, hey, where's he going? I loved him. And he's like floating away, you know? And I'm like, okay, whatever. So then, you know, we continue on. And my sponsor told me, look at, you were squatting up in the CEO office. I lacked the authority to act. It was never my power to begin with. I'm supposed to be in the mailroom, but I'm not getting demoted or punished that's where I was supposed to be from the very beginning. And every day, I'm just sorting my mail. Some days I got to stack like this. Some days I got to stack like this.
That's right.
You know? And I'm just grabbing my mail. I'm like, 36B, doing the next indicated step. Get the next thing. I'm just doing the next indicated step. And the next indicated step. 32A, I put it in the appropriate slot. I don't have to worry about how it's going to happen.
That's right.
I don't have to be in the results business anymore, because I just have to do the next indicated step. I have to show up. When somebody asks me to speak, yes, I will be there. You know, we don't turn down an AA request, is what I was taught around here. And I just kept doing it and what I didn't know was happening in the background. And what God was doing was like, he's like taking this wine-soaked dreadlock of a life, and then, you know, I'm a hairstylist, so bear with me here. Just a little spritz of like leave-in conditioner and a wet brush, and he's just taking it from the bottom and just like, okay, yeah, just keep doing the next indicated step. And I'm watching my life become untangled before my eyes. I didn't think it was possible. Like, I thought God was like, just kill that one and we'll figure it out with another person. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even possible. But it's starting to untangle before my eyes. And all I need to do is the next indicated step. Get to work, you know, pick up my phone when my sponsee calls, show up for my commitment at the battleship tomorrow, you know. And that was a big part of it too, was picking up commitments. Because a lot of the times it's like, oh, I don't want to go to the meeting tonight, and I have a commitment, and I do go, you know. And it's crazy because I have a spiritual malady, right? When I first got here, and they told me that too, what I'm experiencing that to be is like, I have a spiritual malady, and what that looks like, God talks to me in like picture books, so there's a lot of analogies, is like scoliosis of the spirit, right? It's supposed to be like this, but my spirit is like turned back to me, plugged in under my armpit as the power source, and like, I'm the power source. But when I'm able to like be of service or help somebody or pick up my phone or show up and speak when, you know, there's an AA request, it's straightening that out. And those steps and the traditions and the fellowship start to like create braces on that and straighten it out. And the most amazing thing happens is it starts to open up that vessel. It's like my hose in my front yard. I swear to God, I hate that hose. Every time I go around the corner and it gets a kink in it, and I'm like, damn it, I have to slam it on the ground to straighten it out, because when there's a kink in it, there's no flow going through it. When that vessel gets straightened out and I'm able to be of service, I didn't understand when I first got here. You know, I wanted to talk about my baby daddy to my sponsor. She's like, go help another alcoholic. I'm like, I don't know how that's going to directly help my issues. You don't understand. My life is a freaking mess. It opened up that vessel, and God was able to flow back to me simultaneously when I was able to open up that vessel and be of service. The minute I start thinking of myself again, and I'm grateful today for being restless, irritable, and discontent when I feel that. Because it's like this indicator, you know, it's like check oil or whatever, you know, like it's kind of like that. When I'm restless, irritable, and discontent, I got my grubby hands all over my life again. And I'm agitated. And I gotta straighten that out, because it's like the minute I start stepping away from the program or stop not taking commitments or not, you know, taking the last minute speaking commitment, that's the way to do it, you know? I was told, like, this program is monkey see, monkey do. Make sure you're following the right monkeys. You know? That's how it is. Because I think a lot of the times it's like we get wrapped up in situations like this and we're just having fun. And my friend Daniel G always says, he's like, it's a hourglass glued to the table while you're here. You know, we could have fun and go to the Beacon thrift store and flirt and go to Fleet Week and all that, but I need to get this program. This is a 12-step program. If I'm not doing the 12 steps, I'm just loitering, you know? And I'm not gonna get it, and there is a pinhole small amount of people that are gonna get this. That's the truth of it, is the 1%, 2% of people that are gonna actually get this, and there's people that are free. And I go to these amazing meetings that everybody in that room is free, and I stick with those people, and I start doing precisely and exactly what they're doing, especially when it doesn't make sense to me. They taught me to do contrary action around here. I don't go here for the solution anymore, because I'm not gonna heal my sick mind with my sick mind. That's the insanity of my disease, where it's like, no, I think I got this today. God, you know what, God, get me a coffee and 2 sugars, please. I got it today. And I had slipped my polyester skirt suit back on, and I'm back to the CEO office and ready to run it again, you know? And that's not what we're doing here. I have to be reminded every single day, you know, because I forget. It's like I go to bed sober and I wake up an alcoholic. And if I don't get into on awakening first thing in the morning, if I don't start my day off asking God to divorce me from self-pity, from blame, all of those dubious luxuries not to be relied upon. Justified anger, justified resentment, false pride, false humility, blame, all those things that I used to cling on to. And it would take me so far off course, and I blamed everybody for everything. You know, if there was an issue with work, it was always somebody else's fault. Or if there was an issue with my life, it was always because I didn't have parents that loved me, or this or that, and there was always a reason for it, and I was clinging to it. And it took me so far off course, I didn't know who I was or where I was anymore. Those things are not to be relied upon. I can't cling to resentment today. I don't have the luxury of having resentment in my program today. You know, it's like, I always think about it, because we're in the river, of like a resentment is like one of those dubious luxuries, and it says resentments are the #1 offender. That they destroy more alcoholics than any other thing. Resentments. That means even over alcohol and drugs. It destroys more alcoholics than any other thing, that resentment. So I better learn what a resentment is and how to avoid it. When it starts talking about things like that in the big book, and I get into these big book studies, and I start seeing myself, and it starts coming to life, and it starts giving me a new design for living, and it tells me that acceptance is the answer to all of my problems, then I better know what the hell acceptance is and exactly how to apply that to my life, you know? And it tells me in the acceptance letter, if you haven't read it, it's 416 through 418 in the big book. And it breaks it down, and it says, you know, we have our lenses on backwards. I have my lenses on backwards, and I'm seeing things, you know, for the negativity that it is. Why isn't this working out? Why isn't that working out? And when I focus on the problem increases. Yep. When I focus on the solution increases. And when I start to shift my mind to that, and I hop into my gratitude list first thing in the morning, you know, these are the kind of things that are just I have to do daily, because I have a daily reprieve based on my spiritual maintenance. Like how I had a nightly reprieve, and that was blacking out. Today I have a daily reprieve. That buzz isn't gonna last me for 2 days straight. I know that for a fact. I have to do it every single day. I have to do this every single day. I have to keep doing it and keep doing it. And I have to continuously be reminded, you know, because it's like, I feel like I'm like, have you guys seen 50 First Dates?
Yeah.
I wake up every morning and I'm like, I'm Drew Barrymore in 50 First Dates, and God's Adam Sandler. And every morning he wakes up, and I wake up and I'm like, where am I? You know what I mean? Like, I'm like ready to just be mad and blame. And God pops in the VHS, and he's like, okay, so this is what happened in your life. I know, it sucks, right? But here's where we are today. And it's like I have no recollection. I have to be reminded. Here's where we are today. Now let's go live our lives, you know? And it's, every morning I learn this from one of the old timers, to say to God, healed it. And I get to take them down today, and I get to share them with others, and I get to make use of it. And it's not because I've heard a tale of this, it's because I'm experiencing it. The reason I know those things are healed is because I don't want to die when I hold them today. You know? I know that for a fact. And I don't know where God is taking me. I don't need to know. That's above my pay grade. You know? But one thing I know for sure is God is placing me back on track for the original intention for my life. Those instincts that got knocked off the tracks, those instincts, those character defects of what they become, start to get placed back on the track for the original intention that they were intended for. It really happens around here. This thing is really, really, really real. And there's something happening below the level of consciousness here. This is spiritual warfare. And we can't even, I couldn't even probably process all that God has for my life. You know, I'm gonna steal his line since he's not here anymore, Richard. It's an infinite plan for my finite mind. You know, I can't grasp it. I can't handle it. I don't need to know all that. I just need to do the next indicated step. And from my experience watching people around here do that, life gets really good. And we get to create a life beyond our wildest dreams. That's not just a tale. I watch people do it. I watch people buy houses and clean up their credit and get their kids back. And what John says, get back in the big bed. And, you know, just all these things start to happen in people's lives, and that restoration and that recovery, saved from loss, restored to usefulness. And it's the craziest thing today, because it's like, when I'm able to do something like this tonight, it gives me the greatest sense, it gives me the greatest ease and comfort. It gives me fulfillment. You leave these places, not because you're like, oh, I did such a good job. It's more like, just like, when we're able to make use of that crap that we came in here with and help another alcoholic, or I get to sit at the Salvation Army every Friday night with all the guys and speak on a panel every Friday night, and we go get tacos afterwards, or I get to go to the psych ward where everybody in that room is 5150'd and share and be like, me too. Just like my sponsor did when I heard her say she wanted to put a gun in her mouth when she first got here. It was like, me too. And something happens when one alcoholic sits with another alcoholic and looks at them and goes, me too. And you can identify, and you can see that person. I could see my sponsor, and she's got an amazing, rich, full life. She doesn't always answer her phone when I call her. She's off getting facials and PV, you know? And but I'll text her right after if I need to talk to her. I don't sit there and go, oh, my sponsor didn't answer, so I guess I won't call her for 4 days. You know, I'll text her and be like, hey, can you talk today? Or what's a good time to talk? And she'll text me back, I gotta chase this, you know? Just like if Eddie's Liquor, all the lights were off, I'd hit up the next liquor store. You know what I mean? I wouldn't leave for 4 days and not drink, you know? I gotta chase this. I gotta want it, because I was drowning, because I was in this freaking tornado and my life was a freaking mess. And it's just like the big book said, I reached out and I grabbed this flimsy reed, right? To just anchor myself for like 1 second. And it turned out to be the loving and powerful hand of God. I get to take girls through this book today. And I get to watch that same process happen for them. And it's the most unbelievable feeling of fulfillment. I'm not getting that sense of ease and comfort that alcohol gave me. It was a sense, it was like an aroma. It wasn't the real thing. I'm getting true ease and comfort today. And that's how I find freedom. I find people who have freedom, and that is my prayer for you guys tonight. You find somebody who has freedom, and you stick with them and do precisely and exactly what they do, even if it's, especially if it's uncomfortable. And that you guys find that same freedom that we found here. Thank you guys.